Hello everyone, viewers of the Oppo Rancis's YouTube channel. Today we have a special kind of video. We have a special guest in Mr. Jacob M. Keene, who is a YouTube fan-made project and other stuff voice actor and a YouTuber. So obviously we have collaborated with him in the past. He's a very nice person, so it is a pleasure to have him here, and we will be organizing an interview much like I did with Monty last year. So how are you, Jacob? Tell us, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it is most certainly an honor. Now I have 7 questions for you that I have written. And I think we can jump ahead with them, shall we? Yes?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so the first question that I have for you is, what do you, obviously you've worked with a lot of different people when it comes to fan-made projects. You've worked in that Beauty and the Beast fandom and many, many other things. What do you appreciate the most when it comes to the communication and collaboration between a project director and the cast and crew he assembles, or he or she?
Let's see. Well, I do appreciate whenever I'm able to, whenever I approach several people here and there, and whenever they're available, and whenever I'm able to work well with them, and when they're happy to be in several projects of mine or any of them, and how well I appreciate whenever they give their A game for their performances in my projects and make it all the better, and just to show me that they care about the overall quality of the final product, and they help with their part of that. So I guess I appreciate that the most about that.
Yes, that is most certainly a very important feature between collaborations. That is a very good answer. Now the second question from me to you, Jacob, is obviously you have played a lot of characters, you do a lot of impressions, and this is a question that I've actually been wondering with a lot of people lately, so I thought I'd ask you about this. Obviously you play a lot of different characters, you voice, you do impressions, but is there any kind of limit where you feel you don't, you can't play this character, not because you're not physically capable, I guess, but because just the character, you can't allow yourself to play them. Is there any kind of limit that you create for yourself when it comes to voice acting for characters?
Well, in regards to, like you said, not when I'm physically not able to do it, but there's not really much of that. But when it comes to whatever I might partake in different projects here and there, I actually do have sort of a thing where I limit what kinds of projects I'm in, and some people might wonder what that might be, and I know that some people here or there choose not to be in stuff like fandom, since it's a bit amateurish, but I guess I'm occasionally in those, so I don't really find that as a limit for myself. But as for what the limits actually are, I sort of have selective boundaries whenever I'm offered projects. Like, for example, like if you see on my Twitter page, it says SFW, safe for work only. So yeah, doesn't just mean for like the internet posts I post in general, but also for what kind of work I'll accept. So I won't accept like not safe for work projects, or certain projects where it requires me to say certain things, like I'm of the Christian faith, so I don't personally like to use my voice talent and do much swearing, or what we Christians refer to as stuff like blasphemy, which is like to take the name of God or Jesus in vain, or other stuff like that. I just whenever I'm offered a role in a project, I like to look over whether a project has one of those or not in my line. So I just like to be careful of what I accept or don't accept, because there are certain things I don't want to do. But for the most part, I am accepting of many of the offers I have.
Yes, yes. Well, those certainly are important boundaries. Are you still here? Because it sounds like you cut off a bit. Could you just say something so that I can check that we didn't have an interruption in the connection?
Oh, sure. Maybe I.
No, no, no. Okay, I can hear you. I can hear you. I just thought you cut off, but I think you finished the sentence. Yes, yes. I actually, yeah. I mean, I do think that not doing swearing and stuff like that, it is a good thing when it comes to limiting yourself and the roles you have. So I am happy that you have some kind of things. But obviously, it is very good that you accept so many rules. It's very fun for the community and so on. So for the third question, now you obviously, I know that you really enjoy Tony J as a voice actor, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, and I wanted to kind of make a little combined question here. And you also, I remember you did a, if I'm correct, you did a video where you imitated all of the lines of Sir Christopher Lee as Wilbur Wonka in one of your videos. Yes, I'm remembering that correct.
Lollipops ought to be called cavities on a stick.
Yes, so could you please tell the audience and me kind of a bit how you did those impressions of Sir Christopher Lee and Mr. Tony J?
Well, I guess I just. Oh, wait, I think not there. Hang on, let me start over that. I guess I studied some of each of their works, some of Tony J and Christopher Lee's roles, and also their voices and stuff. And I figured over time that maybe I would want to learn how to do impressions of them, and then I guess I just made a small recordings of each of them at separate times, and I figured that at first they weren't as accurate then, but I figured that I didn't want to just give up, because at first they didn't sound as accurate, so I just thought I'd keep practicing at them, and then just playback recordings of both Tony J and Christopher Lee, and then I would, mostly Tony J, that I would just play them back side by side, both the original voice and my impression, and that I would keep practicing at it, especially with YouTube, and so that I would get better at those. And actually, though I don't have it up on my channel anymore, I did used to have a Christopher Lee impression video where I did some of his lines from Count Dooku from Attack of the Clones. Except then, a couple of people told me it sounded a little too much like Tony J, and I felt that at first, and I later on, for a while, I gave up and I removed the video since I wasn't feeling as confident then. But eventually, I found another way to do the Christopher Lee impression through some other different method, and I figured, you know what, let's go from there. And so I recorded myself, and then I figured, yeah, I would just keep practicing on with that, and included in some other stuff, like my entertainment reenactment series, among some other things, like maybe voicing for others, and so here we are.
Yeah, you kind of sometimes even mix the two. If maybe I'm mistaken here, but I thought there was some combination you did of Scaramanga and Tony J one time. That if I remember correctly, there was something like that, wasn't it?
Oh well, that one.
Oh yes, very clearly.
That was my when I did a reenactment of a scene from The Man with the Golden Gun. Well, that one, it wasn't really meant to be a combination of the two. It was just the point of my entertainment reenactment series is to just make sure to keep up both my acting and impression skills, and that I'm not limited to saying just certain words in certain impressions, but I can basically say anything. And I thought I'd mix it up a bit, since I don't usually do a direct impression of a character within a movie when I do an entertainment reenactment. The idea is I do somebody else completely different just to spice it up a bit. So what I was doing there was I was just doing Tony J's voice doing Scaramanga's lines there.
Yeah, well, I think it worked brilliantly. I love the idea personally, so I think that was very good actually. Now on to the fourth question. Now, so I shall ask you this. This question is basically, obviously, you do, in my opinion, a great impression of Ernie Sabella's Pumbaa.
So, does this mean we're going back to the beginning? Oh boy, do we get to see where you grew up?
I mean, I actually much prefer you over Mr. Seth Rogen from the 2019 film. I really like your impression. I think it's very fitting. And Pumbaa, just a little off note here, but did want to share this. Pumbaa is actually, I really like the character. He's one of my favorite characters for many, many years now. I actually have this thing of him here. And so I was going to ask you about the Pumbaa voice. What do you think is most important to get right in the Ernie Sabella Pumbaa impression?
The most important to get right. Well, I think what might be the most important to get right, other than when doing impressions, I generally whenever I do impressions, I also usually think of acting well as the character so that they're not all flat in the delivery. But other than that, with Pumbaa in particular, I guess it's to make sure that whenever you do like the gravelly voice, that it's, I guess, to a certain degree, to a certain pitch with how you do it, because like there are several other like gravelly voices I do here and there, such as Brian Doyle Murray, who was the Flying Dutchman in SpongeBob, or even others like Bowser in the Super Mario franchise, where it's actually a little more rough that way. But I guess with Pumbaa, it's I think it's a different kind of gravel, where I guess in a way it's sort of like higher pitched, but it's still rough, like where I would assume that the way Ernie Sabella did it, it might have been, I would assume he did it to sound like an actual warthog squeal or whatever, like a squeal quality or something. I think that was important is to just to do it in a way where it
You cut off there, so could you repeat the
yeah,
last?
sorry, something interrupted my end of the call for a second and I had to decline it. Oh, what I was saying was, I think in order to make it sound a bit like a warthog, but still sound like an intelligible voice, I think that might be the most important of it for a Pumbaa impression.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I certainly do think that you succeeded in your Pumbaa impression, so I do think that we should listen to you when it comes to how to do it, because I think you're very, very close there, definitely. And now on to the fifth question. We have 5, 6, 7, 3 questions left to go, and I've been very much enjoying the interview so far. You've given some very interesting input. In one of the Star Wars audio comics, which was a Princess Leia audio comic, I believe, you voiced a character called Lord Jun.
I was so devastated to hear about Alderaan.
Thank you.
With all we lost, is it in the worst taste to be glad you're alive?
And from what I am aware, that was an entirely original character for the comic. So, if you could please explain to us, how did you come up with that particular voice? How did you create the voice? What inspired you, kind of, that's what I'm interested in.
Well, I remember that when I auditioned for the role, I'm not remembering as much about what the character description was for him when I auditioned, but I think it might have had something to do with how that he's I guess more of a smooth guy or something like that. Yeah, my memory's foggy, but I figured for that sort of thing, I would just a smoother sort of baritone voice, and so that's how when I auditioned for the role, I just did that, and I was kind of surprised when I actually was cast in the role, and
Really?
I had fun doing that, like someone who's an LA of Leia or something like that, and then it turns out he's actually a villain. That's such an interesting quality to do for him, where he just stays sort of genuinely, even when he's like exposed and stuff. Sorry, spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen the audio comic.
You should watch the audio comic, people. You should watch the audio comic. Yes, please carry on.
But I guess I just came up with the voice where I guess I sort of the voice I did. I sort of recycled one of my what I guess I like to call my standard deep voice, where I'm not doing it really low within that register, but not really high either with certain others. But I feel like it's just sort of in the middle, where it's just light but still deep at the same time. And I found that I use the same voice for other things, like for one of my original skit characters, the fictional YouTuber Red Comet 4027, or for this one other character I did in a My Little Pony fan project of an original character called Backboard Buck, where I just sort of recycled the voice for that, and I figured it worked for that role, especially concerning what we found out later, like I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think, yeah, definitely the smoothness, I really felt it. I mean, when I first listened to that, and it wasn't too long ago that I listened to it the first time, it was just a few months ago, and I really did feel that kind of, kind of smoothness to it. You really did that well, yes. Alright, 2 more questions left to go. This next question, I actually asked it to voice actor Monty last year in his interview, but I really liked this question. I feel it is really important to get your opinion on this, so I decided to repeat it with you as well. And the question is the following: what do you think about effects being added to actors' voices? Do you think it decreases the performance, or do you think it makes it better, or do you welcome that, or do you not enjoy it when that happens? What is your status on that particular situation?
Well,
You cut off again.
oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, there we go. My thumb's still on the button. Oh, there it goes again. Well, I don't think I really have an overall perspective on that sort of thing with effects used in medias, but I think it just depends on just each individual role that the effects are used for and how they're used, and how much of it is over the voice, and it's used in different ways. Like some characters' voices are pitched up for certain roles, and some are pitched down. Some are mixed together. Like for example, like with the pitched up thing, like the mice in Disney's Cinderella, their voices I figured out through pitch shifting down in one of my videos that they're pitched up. It's just some actors doing certain voices, and then they pitch them up to sound high and squeaky like mice. And then like with deeper ones, for example, you have let's see, there's a Roadhog in the game Overwatch. I figured, yeah, like I sort of have an ear for when there's voices, like whenever they pitch shift voices. And for his voice, I figured, they just when Josh Petersdorf, I think his name is, when he did the voice of Roadhog, he just has a naturally deep voice, but then to make it sound like it's coming through a mask, they could have put his voice through a filter or something, but I figured they just pitched it down lower, and for a big hulking guy like Roadhog, I think that sort of voice works for him. And there's other stuff like mixing it together, like for example the main villain of Star Fox 64, Andross, where Rick May, where he did the voice, and then they added a second track, pitched down track of his voice, and I think it works for a menacing villain like him, especially with him being the main villain and him being a deadly threat and all, and I think that works. And one more example, a positive example I can think of is Evil Emperor Zurg, specifically in Toy Story 2 when he was voiced by Andrew Stanton, and they pitched his voice down to sound like a Darth Vader parody. I think that sort of thing works. And there are occasional times where it may not work. Like I remember hearing an example of Jameson Price voicing Surtur in some Thor Marvel video game, and those effects just don't work because the way I remember seeing somebody comment on the voice compare on behind the voice actors was that his voice was buried in the effects and it just inhibited his performance because you can tell that he's actually trying to act the role well, like when he's yelling and being menacing and all. You can barely hear it because the effects on his voice were a little too loud, and that was a hindrance. So in his case, it didn't work, but again, I think it depends on just for each individual performance with effects. It can depend. It can work at times, but other times it might not. But I don't think it's just overall good or overall bad.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I agree with you on this. I do think it really depends on the specific case. And that means that we are on to the very last, 7th question. And I wanted to talk actually about your help with one of my projects in the past, which I by the way, really appreciated, in the role of Dr. Octopus in Amazing Spider-Man issue 3, which I made in September of 2020.
I can go anywhere, do anything. Fences can't stop me. No one can catch me.
And I wanted to ask you, when it comes to this character, obviously he was very, very important. He was the main antagonist. The whole comic is about his power, his victory over Spider-Man, his strength, and so on. And so I wanted to ask you, when it comes to roles like these, which are kind of very important and so on, and act a big part of the story, what kind of approach do you take where you want to make sure that they turn out very good and that the character is really presented in the way that he's supposed to be? Can you detail to us what kind of things you do with those like very important roles where you have to get it right, please? Yes.
I think whenever I get cast in some roles here and there, and then when I want to get into the character and all, I guess I just usually whenever I'm linked the script to the project, I guess usually I just look it over and then I sort of like to get an idea of what the character's lines and what their emotions in each of their lines are like, and then I usually just think of which ways to perform that in each of my takes of each of the characters, depending on the situation they're in and all. And yeah, I just like to make sure that and normally whenever I'm voicing for someone else, normally I'm just given the script and I'm just given some time to voice the character, and I just record it by myself, and I guess I kind of do a bit of self-direction with multiple takes, and then when I hear something in the file that maybe needs to be redone because of something, I might feel like I need to do a retake because maybe I underacted a line or maybe for some other reason, but I don't usually get a video or anything giving me specific voice direction for a role, but I guess like when you gave me some direction for Dr. Octopus, that was appreciated, and I feel like that I'm glad that you showed me how you cared about how Dr. Octopus was performed.
Well, it was very important, yes. It was very important for that particular comic, so I wanted to make sure you get it right. But obviously, you did well even with the parts that weren't, like, specific. You were amazing throughout the entire thing.
Thanks. So yeah, I think that, although I don't normally get any sort of voice direction with specific parts unless it's on the script, I do try to give it my A game, and I hope that everything comes out right. And whenever people do occasionally ask me for some retakes, I try to do those the best I can, whenever, depending on what they want from me. So I just try to do my best each time.
Yes, it's very, yeah, you definitely One thing I can tell about you, Jacob, most definitely to our viewers and to everyone, you definitely put a lot of effort into your work. It's very obvious that you care. You're very passionate. That's also something I appreciate. A lot of people nowadays aren't as passionate about their work and, as creative as you are, which is why I chose to interview you today, because, you're very creative. Your YouTube channel showcases that wonderfully, and I'll definitely put a link when I upload the interview to YouTube. And it was very nice to have you here with these 7 questions, which were not the largest amounts, but definitely we spoke a lot about them, and I was very happy to hear your kind of discussion on how exactly you approach these situations. So I was very glad to have you here. And I must tell to all of our viewers, before I give Jacob the final word to say something to you, that it was very much an honor to interview Mr. Jacob Keene. Jacob M. Keene, I'm not exactly sure how, I think it's Jacob M. Keene, is that correct? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it was an honor to interview him, and I would now like to give the word to him so that he can say the final thing for today's video and exactly what he thinks.
Oh, let's see, final word. It's been my pleasure taking part in this, and I'm glad that I was able to give you my input on various things, and I'm glad that you like my passion on each of my course work on my channel or for others, and this has been fun. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, it was wonderful. You're most welcome. Yes, thank you. Please make sure to subscribe to Mr. Jacob M. Keene. And have a good day, viewers.